What would you do if your own mother humiliated you on your wedding day in front of everyone? I'll tell you exactly what I did. I had dreamed of this day for so long. The dress, the vows, the first dance. But nothing could have prepared me for the moment when my mother stood up just as the ceremony was beginning and completely tore me down. We were in the middle of exchanging vows when my mom decided it was the perfect time to speak. I thought she was going to say something heartfelt, something beautiful to mark the occasion. But no. She looked at the crowd and said, "You're rushing into this. You're too young. You'll regret it, just like every other decision you've made in your life." The air was sucked out of the room. My heart dropped, my hands trembling. Everyone stared in shock. This was supposed to be my moment, but instead, she turned it into something ugly. I was humiliated, in front of everyone, in front of the person I was about to marry. I couldn't believe it. But then, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just going to stand there trying to pretend like everything was okay. I was done. Done with her tearing me down. Done with being the one who was always pushed aside. I wasn't going to let her walk away from this one. I had a plan, and when I went through with it, she would never forget what she did. The moment she finished speaking, the room fell into a stunned silence. I could feel the eyes of everyone on me, waiting for me to react. My heart pounded in my chest, my mind racing. I wanted to yell, to scream at her. I wanted to run away to stop this whole thing from happening. But I couldn't. Not yet. I looked at my soon-to-be husband, and his face, his pained expression, only made it worse. He was hurt, confused, and honestly, I could see the wheels turning in his head. He didn't know what was going on. He didn't know how long I had been dealing with my mom's manipulations. He didn't know how much it had destroyed me over the years. But I wasn't going to let this go. I wasn't going to let her make me feel small anymore. Not today. Not in front of everyone. Not when I had worked so hard to make this day perfect. She thought she could humiliate me like this and walk away unscathed? She was wrong. I had been planning this day for months, but not for the reasons she thought. I hadn't just been focused on the dress, the decorations, and the guests. I had been planning how I would get my power back, how I would get my revenge if she ever tried something like this. I walked down the aisle, trying to steady my breath, trying to keep my composure, but inside I was burning with rage. I could feel the anger seeping into every fiber of my being. And then it hit me. This wasn't just about her disrespecting me in front of everyone. It was about showing her that her actions would finally have consequences. I smiled to myself as I thought about the plan I had set into motion weeks ago. She had no idea what was coming. When I reached the end of the aisle, I turned to my husband, who was looking at me with wide eyes. He could tell something had happened, something wasn't right, but he didn't understand yet. I leaned in, whispering just loud enough for him to hear. "You'll understand later. Trust me." The ceremony continued, but every word they spoke seemed like it was muffled, the sound fading in the background of my mind. I wasn't really paying attention to the vows or the ritual. My mind was on one thing: her. As the reception began, I excused myself for a moment. I had to make sure the final pieces of my plan were in place. I couldn't let the moment slip by without executing it perfectly. I needed her to feel the consequences of her words. And so, as she mingled with guests, unsuspecting, I made my move. I had arranged for the most subtle but devastating revelation to take place. A revelation that would expose her actions, her selfishness, and the way she had always tried to control me. She had no idea, but the stage was set. I called the person who had been working behind the scenes for me, the one who had been collecting the evidence I needed to destroy her credibility. He had the information I needed, and now it was time. When I returned to the reception, I saw her laughing with some of the guests, looking completely at ease, like she hadn't just humiliated me in front of my entire family. The audacity of it made my blood boil. But I remained calm. I was in control. The music was playing softly in the background, and people were talking, drinking, enjoying themselves when I took the microphone. "Excuse me, everyone," I said, my voice clear and steady, cutting through the noise. "I'd like to take a moment to address something important." The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at me, but I could see the confusion on their faces. They had no idea what was about to happen. Neither did my mom. "I've been humiliated today, in front of the people who mean the most to me. And it's not just today. It's been happening for years. My mom, who claims to love me, has spent my entire life trying to tear me down. But today, she crossed the line," I continued, my voice steady but full of conviction. I glanced over at my mom, who was now standing still, her face paling as she realized what was happening. Her eyes widened in panic. "I've worked hard for this day, and I've worked hard to create my own life, separate from the control she's tried to have over me," I said, my eyes locked on hers. "But today, I'm taking my power back." I turned to the projector screen that had been set up for the reception, clicking the remote control in my hand. The screen lit up with images and text, showing email exchanges and messages, proof of her constant undermining, the subtle manipulations, and the hurtful things she had said about me. I could see her face turning red, her eyes filled with panic as the guests stared at the screen. "This is the truth," I said, my voice unwavering. "This is who she really is, and I'm done letting her tear me down." The room was silent. No one knew what to say. I felt the weight of the moment, the power of exposing the truth. But there was something else there, too. Relief. Finally, I could breathe. I had taken my control back, and she couldn't take it from me again. My mom stood there, speechless, as I walked away, leaving her standing in front of everyone. The applause that followed wasn't for me. It was for the truth, for finally standing up to the woman who thought she could break me. The silence in the room was deafening. My mom stood frozen, staring at the screen, her face a mixture of shock and humiliation. She had never expected me to do this, never expected me to expose the truth in front of everyone. But I could see the tears welling in her eyes, and for a split second, I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered everything she had put me through. All the years of manipulation, the constant need to make me feel small, and the emotional abuse that I had suffered in silence for far too long. This wasn't just a simple act of revenge. This was me reclaiming my power, my voice, my worth. And I would never apologize for that. I stood there, watching her crumble, watching her try to come up with something, anything, to defend herself. But there was nothing she could say. The truth had been laid bare. Everyone in the room knew exactly what kind of person she was. And that was the most powerful feeling I had ever experienced. "You think you can humiliate me like that, and I would just stand by and let it slide?" I said, my voice calm but full of conviction. You've been tearing me down my whole life, but no more. I could see the regret in her eyes now, the panic setting in. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She was lost, trapped in the web of lies she had created. I wasn't done yet. This wasn't just about exposing her in front of everyone. It was about making sure she understood the consequences of her actions. I want everyone here to know the real story, I continued, my voice steady and strong. This isn't just about today. This has been years of manipulation and control. Years of me being made to feel like I wasn't good enough. I turned back to the screen, showing even more damning evidence of her toxic behavior. The whispers began, the guests murmuring to each other as they realized the extent of what had been happening behind closed doors. I wasn't just revealing her secrets, I was freeing myself from the emotional prison she had built around me. And then, in that moment, something shifted inside me. The anger, the hurt, it all began to fade. What I had felt for so long was no longer anger or resentment. It was just a deep, unshakable sense of release. I had done it. I had taken control of my life, and now she had to face the consequences. My mom, looking at me with wide eyes, tried to reach out, but I pulled back. This wasn't something she could fix with a simple apology. It wasn't something she could erase with her typical manipulative charm. No, she would have to live with the fact that I was no longer her victim. I was no longer afraid of her. "You'll never hurt me again," I said softly, my voice full of finality. "I'm done with the lies. I'm done with the manipulation." I turned to the crowd, the people who had witnessed the truth unfold in front of them. I could see the sympathy in their eyes, the respect for me growing with each passing second. And for the first time in my life, I felt proud. Proud of the woman I had become. Proud of the strength I had found to stand up for myself. The applause that followed wasn't just for me. It was for every person who had ever been controlled or belittled, for every person who had suffered in silence. It was a reminder that no one should ever have to accept mistreatment from those they love. As I walked away from my mom, I felt no guilt. I didn't feel sorry for her. She had made her choices, and now she would have to live with them. I walked back to my husband, who was watching from the sidelines, his eyes filled with admiration. He had always been my support, but today I had supported myself, and that was the greatest victory of all. The room was still buzzing, whispers filling the air, but none of it mattered. As I looked around, I could see the change in the atmosphere. The tension had shifted. What had started as a moment of humiliation for me had now become a public statement. The mask my mother had worn for so long had finally slipped, and the truth was out. She could never go back to pretending she was the perfect, loving mother again. Not after today. But I didn't feel relief yet. No, I wasn't done. Not until I knew she fully understood the weight of what she had done. This wasn't about forgiveness. It wasn't even about closure. This was about showing her the consequences of her behavior, the lasting impact of her words and actions. And I knew she wasn't going to take it well. When I walked away from her, I could feel her eyes on my back, her silent plea for me to come back and fix things. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I wasn't the girl who would bend, who would apologize just to keep the peace. I had earned my power, and no one, especially not her, was going to take that from me. As I approached the exit of the hall, I could hear my husband calling my name. His voice was soft, almost tentative, but there was no doubt he was proud of what I had just done. He had always supported me, but now, in this moment, he saw a different version of me, a stronger version, a version that wasn't afraid to stand up for herself. "You okay?" he asked, his voice gentle, but I could see the pride in his eyes. I nodded, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. "I'm more than okay," I replied, my voice steady, a far cry from the nervous wreck I had been just hours ago. "I finally did it. I finally stood up for myself in a way I've never done before, and I'm not going back." There was a moment of silence between us as we stood there, letting the weight of the situation settle in. I knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more fallout, more drama. But I also knew that I had just crossed a line, and there was no going back. I wasn't going to be controlled anymore. And that feeling, that sense of freedom, of control, was worth everything. As we walked out of the reception hall, I felt like I was walking into a new chapter of my life. One where I was the one in charge of my destiny. I wasn't going to let anyone tell me what I could or couldn't do anymore. Not my mom, not anyone. I had taken my power back, and I wasn't going to let anyone ever take it from me again. If this story spoke to you, if you've ever had to fight for your voice or reclaim your power, make sure to subscribe for more stories of revenge, emotional drama, and empowerment. Hit the bell icon to stay updated with more shocking twists and life-changing moments. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had to stand up to someone who hurt you? How did you do it? Let us know, and don't miss out on what happens next in these powerful stories.